Good evening, hockey fans from around the Nicola Valley. Welcome to the show where you can stay up to date on everything Merritt Centennials, Talking Sense. I'm your host and play-by-play broadcaster for the Merritt Centennials, Jared Thomas. We're into week 4 of the season now, and the Sens just completed their annual trip to the BCHL Bauer Showcase. We'll give a full recap on that, as well as a look forward to this week's matchups against the Surrey Eagles and the Cowichan Valley Capitals. I'll have Steve Erickson, voice of the Eagles, join me later in the show, but first let's hear about the Sens' newest addition that they added just before the showcase, that being Colton Gerleb, number 23, whose rights were acquired for the rights of Ethan King, who got into 11 games for the Sens last season. Coach Martin on the qualities of his newest defenseman.
I've liked Colton for a couple of years, and I think I really like the way he skates, and he's a puck-moving defenseman, and he provides a year of experience in junior hockey. We felt we could use that.
And use him they did, as he was able to arrive for the first game of the showcase against the Langley Rivermen, who at the time were second in the mainland division. The Sens, still searching for their first win, would start this one from behind.
At the line, it's held by Golka, and down low to Leduc. Near side corner, turning speed, and at the side of the net, the Rivermen strike first. Nicholas Ponak with the goal.
Golka held it at the line, played it down to the right side of the net, where Leduc played it cross ice to Ponak, who pocketed it for the first goal of the game. The Sens and Rivermen, they traded chances throughout the first, but it was a 1-0 lead that held into the second period, where the Sens started with a little fire.
To his own zone as the Rivermen work back. Good turnover by Zach Court. He's got Nick Wicks in the middle. Wicks unloads and he scores! Nick Wicks!
Great hand-eye by Zach Court to grab that puck off the wall, then fed Nick Wicks in stride. He bulleted a shot past Cromar for the 1-1 tie, but later on in the period, it was the Rivermen who answered back, and it was Nick Ponak getting his second of the game.
Long speed, finds Ponak in stride. He makes the move to the backhand and puts it up and over Berger.
Golka and Ponak combining again, this time Golka with a beautiful pass right into the goal mouth, tape to Ponak, who put it up past Berger on the backhand. The Sens, they would slowly gain momentum throughout the second period, and then about halfway through the period, they finally got the equalizer.
At the line, Buckley will hold. Quick shot on that gets through! Tyrell Buckley from the line finds it through the wickets of Cromar.
It was actually Zach Zorn who got the deflection in front of Cromar to beat him between the legs, and the Sens didn't stop there. Late in the period, Christian Sabin was sprung on the breakaway and hauled down. You know what that means.
And here he comes from center ice, Christian Sabin. He'll go to the left side, now crossing in, forehand shot, low, and he'll score! Christian Sabin on the penalty shot gives the Centennials their first lead of the game.
The Centennials had their first lead going into the third period of play in the season, but in the third, it was the Rivermen who struck first.
The Rivermen score. Trevor Ayer didn't get through on the first pass, but he collected the loose puck and then finally did feed his man in front, that being the captain, Brendan Beauty.
The Sens had the game on their stick with a late power play. However, on that power play, the Rivermen scored.
Now Brendan Schneider leaves, but Ponak steps into it, and he'll score!
A heartbreaking loss, as that would be the game winner. The Sens didn't have much time to lick their wounds, as 10 a.m. the next morning, they had to face the Prince George Spruce Kings. We'll hear the highlights from that game up next on Talking Sense with me, Jared Thomas. Welcome back to Talking Sense, where you can stay up to date with everything Merritt Centennials. I'm your host and play-by-play broadcaster, Jared Thomas. In segment 1, we recap the Sens' first game of the showcase against the Langley Rivermen, a hard-fought loss to the Rivermen as they surrendered a late shorthanded goal to go down 4-3. To the second-place team in the mainland division. But there was no rest for the weary, as the Sens had to be up and ready by 10 a.m. the next morning to take on the first-place team in the mainland division, the Prince George Spruce Kings. The Sens started the game with some fire, but a little too much fire, as Alex Borjas went to the box for interference early in the game. However, on the penalty kill, the Sens scored their first special teams goal of this season.
Man covering for him. Quick up. Now Henry Cleghorn. He's got a chance. And all alone short-handed. Henry Cleghorn. Forward back. And he scores! What a beauty from Cleghorn. Short-handed. He made the move. Backhand, forehand, past the pad of Cooper. And we have our first goal of the game. It comes on the power play. But it's the power play of the Prince George Spruce Kings. Henry Cleghorn gets it done short-handed.
The Centennials would ride that lead all the way through the first period, where they went to the second intermission with their first lead of the season after 20 minutes of play. In the second period, it started off fast and furious. The Prince George Spruce Kings answered quickly.
Working it up that far side wall. Miller hooks it over to Del Monte, but now puts on a chance in sight, and the Spruce Kings will score. It was a tough turnover at the blue line, and it's Ethan DeYoung who'll even things up for the Spruce Kings.
The Cents surrendered the first goal of the second period just a minute and a half in. However, 40 seconds later, they had the answer, and it came from an unlikely source.
To get the puck to Wick, now up to Court. Court, he's got Berkopek jumping up into the play with him. Court feeds Berkopek, and they score! What a beauty play!
Joey Berkopek, the defenseman, jumping up in the play to make good on the Zach Court pass. It was a beauty as he stopped up at the right faceoff dot to lose his defenseman. Centered for Berkopek, he poked it past Cooper and in. However, later on in the period, the Cents got into a bit of penalty trouble, and it was Dustin Mans who converted on the power play for the Spruce Kings.
Monroe looking for the quick clear, can't quite get it past Mans though. Now Kennedy in for Mans in the high slot, wrist shot, and he'll score!
That would tie things up at 2. Mans from the place you want to be if you're a shooter. Later on in the period, it was Chase Bell from an awkward spot, and a shot that just managed to find its way through.
Long shot. No, it gets through the glove of Cooper. Just as I was singing his praises, Chase Bell shoots a weak wrister from the left hash mark on the outside of the circle. It gets past the glove of Cooper and in.
The Sens had themselves another lead, but just a minute and a half later, the Spruce Kings would answer yet again. The combination of DeYoung and Poisson combining, this time on an awkward turnover.
Spruce Kings will dump it behind Berger. He's out to play the puck. Plays it to Buckley. He's stripped by DeYoung. Poisson all alone in the slot, and he'll snipe it 5-hole.
That would tie things back up at 3s, and the Sens went into the third period looking for the go-ahead goal. However, their early period woes continued as just 1:30 into the third, Jared Hovde got the go-ahead goal.
Hovde back to the line for DeYoung. DeYoung, long shot. It's loose to the side of the net, and the Spruce Kings score!
The Sens tried to get the equalizer throughout the third period, but were unable to beat Bradley Cooper, and the Spruce Kings handed the Centennials their 6th straight loss, 4-3, the final. In the next segment, we'll look ahead to this week's action, the Surrey Eagles and the Cowichan Valley Capitals. I'm joined by voice of the Eagles, Steve Erickson, all to come here on Talking Sense with me, Jared Thomas. Welcome back to Talking Sense, where you can stay up to date with everything Merritt Centennials. I'm your host and play-by-play broadcaster, Jared Thomas. In segments 1 and 2, we recap the week that was, but now we'll look forward to the week ahead. I'm joined by Steve Erickson, play-by-play man for the Surrey Eagles. Now, Steve, Surrey, they're 4th in the mainland division. You got 4 points. You started strong against Langley and have since struggled, dropping 3 in a row. How would you summarize the Eagles season so far?
Disaster. One word, I guess. They started strong. Ironically, the first 2 games, the first one was against Langley. The second was against Coquitlam. Both games went overtime. The first one, I guess, it was a highlight so far of their season because they had almost 1,300 fans on board. But they lost. They played well. They came out with a couple of wins in the overtimes. Played exceptional. And then from there, they went up to Prince George, and Prince George just beat them up really bad. And in conversation with a couple of guys yesterday, I asked them about the trip up north and the losing part, and they said it was a whole new experience. They said Prince George is a strong club, and they went up there under the assumption that they had played 2 games and done very well, and just sort of took the road trip and the extra couple of games for granted. And they said we shot ourselves in the foot, so to speak. So that was the biggest problem. But you could say it's devastating, but on the other extent of it, it's really a breath of fresh air because we've got a new coaching staff on board. Brendan West is the head coach now. Was up in Salmon Arm, as you know. and Lyndon Sipe is the assistant coach. And in conversation again with the players, they really love what these two guys bring to the team.
You guys play on an Olympic ice sheet over in South Surrey. You come into Merritt, one of the smallest rinks in the league. What kind of difference does that make for the players on the Eagles?
Well, with any luck, the players will adjust. That's the one thing, ironically. I went up to the practice yesterday in South Surrey, and that's the one thing that I heard the coaching staff talking to the players about, is going from an Olympic-size rink to the smaller-size ice surface, and the players have to make the adjustment. You and I both know the coaching can tell them what they want and give them all the instruction they want, but it's the players that have to make those adaptations. And there's a couple players, the number one line, I would say, for example, like with Wesley and Westgard, just to name two. Those are two that will adjust. Their speed might slow them down a little bit, but I think they'll adjust to the big, to the smaller ice surface fairly well. It's just maybe going to take them probably about maybe 5 minutes to adjust to it, because some of these guys, realistically, in conversation yesterday with them, some of the guys have never been out to BC before. So it's a real learning experience for a lot of the guys.
And also, Steve, for the fans in Merritt, who are some of the players so far on the Eagles that have impressed you and might impress here at the Nicola Valley Memorial Arena?
Oh, players to watch. Johnny Wesley, ex-Vancouver Giant player that come back down. He's playing now in the Surrey Eagles in the BCHL. Westgard, Ty Westgard, he's another one. Marcellus, one of the D-men, as well as Jackson Ross, another defenseman. He's actually from the East Coast in the States, and those are real solid players. But the other thing they've got going for them is they got good goaltending. Both goaltenders now that are playing for the team seem to be really focused. They work off each other. It's not that they're going to ride Davidson all the time. They'll play both, and we'll see how that plays out. But I think the fans will be entertained by the speed that some of the forwards line utilize.
And finally, Steve, what can the Sens expect from the Cowichan Valley Capitals? They're coming into town after we face the Surrey Eagles on Wednesday. They'll be in town on Saturday. What have you seen from them so far this season or last season that the fans can expect?
A bit of a change. I think they're on a real build uphill road right now. They want to make changes moving forward. A smaller type team, but they've got a good ability, and we'll see how much it plays out. Sometimes they get a little bit, I guess you would say, overconfident moving forward when they go from game to game. But again, I wouldn't take Cowichan too lightly, because they could really be the ones that could be the one that could, I guess you would say, the straw that breaks the camel's back. But we'll see how they play. They got a nice team.
They've got a nice team, but we'll see if the Sens can be nicer in this week's action. Wednesday night against the Surrey Eagles, 7 p.m. at the Nicola Valley Memorial Arena, and then Saturday night against the Cowichan Valley Capitals at 7 p.m. as well. Until game time and until next Monday, I'm Jared Thomas for Talking Sense. Go Sens, go.